I'm in desperate need of advice. I'm Jake, 42M, and I've been married to Emily, 39F, for 15 years. We've got 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs, and I thought we had a pretty good life. But man, was I damn wrong. It all started about a month ago when Emily began acting weird. She was always on her phone, smiling at texts, and being super vague about her plans. I'm not usually the jealous type, but something felt off. I tried to brush it aside, thinking maybe she was planning a surprise for our anniversary. Little did I know, the surprise waiting for me would turn my entire world upside down and make me question every moment of our marriage. I couldn't shake this nagging feeling, so I started paying closer attention. Emily's girls' nights out were becoming more frequent, and she'd come home late smelling like cologne. When I'd ask about her day, she'd give these vague, rushed answers and quickly change the subject. Then came the bombshell. Last Tuesday, I was cleaning out the garage when I found a shoebox tucked away behind some old paint cans. Curious, I opened it up, and holy shit, it was full of letters, photos, and even a few hotel receipts. But the kicker? There was a recent photo of Emily with her arms around some guy I'd never seen before. And next to them was a little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, who looked just like her. My hands were shaking as I dug through the box. The letters were from this guy named Mark, talking about their precious son and how much he missed them both. The oldest letter was dated just a year after Emily and I got married. My mind was reeling. A secret lover? A kid? How the damn had she hidden this for so long? I felt like I was gonna puke. I must have sat there on the garage floor for hours, just staring at those letters and photos. My whole marriage felt like a lie. I mean, we have 2 kids of our own. How could Emily have another kid out there that I didn't know about? I knew I had to confront her, but I was scared shitless of what she might say. When she got home that evening, acting all normal like nothing was wrong, I almost lost it. I waited until the kids were in bed, then I brought the box into the living room and set it on the coffee table. "Emily," I said, my voice shaking, "what the damn is this?" The look on her face when she saw that box, I'll never forget it. She went pale as a ghost, and for a second, I thought she might faint. Then she started crying and saying shit like, "Jake, I can explain, and it's not what you think." But how the hell could she explain this away? I was so angry I could barely see straight. I demanded answers, and boy, did I get them. Emily spilled her guts, and each word felt like a knife in my chest. Emily's story came out in bits and pieces, between sobs and pleas for forgiveness. Turns out, she'd been having an affair with this Mark guy since our first year of marriage. They met at some work conference, hit it off, and started this whole secret life together. The kicker? She got pregnant with his kid about 2 years into our marriage. Instead of coming clean, she fed me some bullshit about needing to find herself and took off for a few months. I remember being hurt and confused back then, but I never suspected this. She had the baby, a boy named Ethan, and gave him to Mark to raise. All these years, she's been playing mom on the sly, visiting them whenever she could sneak away. Those girls' nights and work trips? Yeah, you guessed it. She was with her other family. I felt like I was in some kind of damned-up TV drama. My wife, the mother of my children, had been living a double life for practically our entire marriage. And the way she was trying to justify it? "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. "I loved you both, I couldn't choose." Couldn't choose? Are you damn kidding me? She made her choice every damn day she lied to my face. I was reeling from Emily's confession, trying to process this tsunami of information. My emotions were all over the place: rage, betrayal, disgust, and a crushing sadness that threatened to overwhelm me. "How could you do this?" I demanded, my voice hoarse from yelling. 15 years, Emily. 15 damn years of lies. She was a mess, mascara streaking down her face as she begged for understanding. "I never meant for it to go on this long," she sobbed. "I thought I could end it, but then there was Ethan and I couldn't abandon my son." "What about our kids?" I shot back. "What about me? Did you ever think about how this would destroy us?" Emily's excuses kept coming, each one more infuriating than the last. She claimed she loved me, that our family meant everything to her. But her actions told a different story. "Does Mark know about us?" I asked, dreading the answer. She nodded, avoiding my eyes. He knows I'm married, but he doesn't know all the details. Great. So I was the only one completely in the dark. The fool who had no idea his wife was juggling two families. As the night wore on, more truths came to light. The depth of her deception was staggering. She'd been siphoning money from our joint account to support Ethan. Those extra hours at work? Yeah, that was bullshit too. The next few days were a blur of pain and confusion. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I looked at Emily, I saw a stranger. The woman I thought I knew, the mother of my children, was gone. In her place was this lying, cheating, I don't even know what to call her. I moved into the spare room. I couldn't bear to sleep next to her, to feel her touch. It made my skin crawl. Our kids, Sophia, 12, and Max, 9, knew something was wrong. We tried to keep it together in front of them, but kids aren't stupid. They could feel the tension, see the red eyes and forced smiles. Emily kept trying to talk to me, to explain herself. But every word out of her mouth just sounded like another lie. She swore she'd end things with Mark, that she'd do anything to save our marriage. But how could I believe her? How could I ever trust her again? I found myself obsessing over every detail of our life together, wondering what else was a lie. Was she really at her sister's last Christmas? Did she actually go to that yoga retreat last summer? Hell, were Sophia and Max even mine? The thought made me sick, but I couldn't help it. The doubt was eating me alive. I knew I had to make a decision, but I felt paralyzed. Should I try to forgive her for the sake of our kids? Should I walk away and start over? And what about Ethan, this innocent kid caught in the middle of all this mess? I had no idea what to do. A week after the bombshell, I decided I needed answers from the other side of this damned-up equation. I found Mark's number in Emily's phone while she was in the shower. My hands were shaking as I dialed. Hello. A deep voice answered. This was the man who'd been screwing my wife for 15 years. Is this Mark? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, who's this? I'm Jake, Emily's husband. There was a long pause. I could hear his breathing on the other end. Shit, he finally said. I guess it's all out now, huh? I wanted to reach through the phone and strangle him, but I kept it together. I think we need to talk, I said. We agreed to meet at a bar across town. I told Emily I was going out with a friend. The irony of lying to her wasn't lost on me. Mark was already there when I arrived. He looked normal. I don't know what I expected, horns and a tail, maybe? He was just a guy, mid-40s, kinda good-looking in that dad-next-door way. We sat in silence for a minute, both nursing beers. Then he spoke. Look man, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean shit, but I am. This whole situation is damned up. I couldn't argue with that. Tell me everything, I said. And don't bullshit me. I've had enough lies to last a lifetime. Mark took a deep breath and started talking. He and Emily met at a marketing conference in Chicago, just a year after our wedding. They hit it off, had a few drinks, and ended up in bed together. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but they kept in touch. I knew she was married, Mark admitted. But she said things weren't great between you two. That you were distant, always working. I guess I wanted to believe it. I felt a surge of anger. Emily and I had our issues back then, sure, but nothing that justified this level of betrayal. Mark continued, describing how their affair developed. Secret meetups, burner phones, the works. When Emily got pregnant, they panicked. She told me she was going to end things with you, Mark said. But then she came back from her soul-searching trip and said she couldn't do it. That she loved you both. I scoffed. Some love. The hardest part was hearing about Ethan. This kid I'd never met, who shared half his DNA with my wife. Mark pulled out his phone and showed me a picture. The resemblance to Emily was undeniable. He's a great kid, Mark said softly. Smart, funny. He thinks Emily is his aunt. We never told him the truth. I felt a mix of emotions I couldn't even begin to untangle. Anger at Emily and Mark, sure. But also a weird sense of loss for this stepson I never knew I had. Does Ethan know about my kids? I asked. Mark shook his head. Emily never wanted the two families to mix. Said it was too complicated. No shit, I thought. What a damn mess. As Mark and I continued talking, the full extent of Emily's deception became clear. She'd been living this double life for so long, juggling lies and excuses with terrifying ease. It made me wonder if I ever really knew her at all. Look, Mark said, finishing his beer, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear this from, but Emily does love you. She talks about you and the kids all the time. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, I'm sure that was real comforting while you were damn my wife. He had the decency to look ashamed. I'm not trying to justify what we did. It was wrong, period. But man, you should know, she was torn up about it. Always talking about ending things, about coming clean to you. But she never did, I pointed out. No, he agreed. She didn't? We sat in silence for a while, both lost in our thoughts. Then I asked the question that had been gnawing at me. What now? What do you want out of all this? Mark sighed. Honestly? I don't know. I love Emily, and I love our son. But this whole situation, it's not sustainable. It's not fair to anyone, especially the kids. I nodded, surprising myself by feeling a flicker of sympathy for the guy. He was as caught up in Emily's web of lies as I was. As I left the bar, my mind was reeling. I had more information now, but I felt no closer to figuring out what to do next. One thing was clear, though, things couldn't go on as they were. Something had to change, and soon. The next few days were a blur of sleepless nights and tense silences. Emily kept trying to talk to me, to explain herself, but I couldn't bear to hear her voice. Every word out of her mouth just reminded me of the years of lies. I found myself watching our kids, Sophia and Max, like a hawk. Were there signs I'd missed? Did they somehow sense the deception that had been going on their entire lives? They seemed normal enough, arguing over the TV remote and complaining about homework. But now and then, I'd catch Sophia giving me these worried looks when she thought I wasn't paying attention. One night, after the kids were in bed, Emily cornered me in the kitchen. Her eyes were red and puffy, like she'd been crying. Jake, please, she begged. We need to talk about this. About us. About what we're going to do. I felt a surge of anger. What we're going to do? I don't know, Emily. Maybe you should have thought about that before you spent 15 years lying to my face. She flinched at my words but pressed on. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you in ways I can never make right. But please, I love you. I love our family. Can't we try to work this out? I looked at her, this woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. Now, she was like a stranger to me. And what about Mark? I asked. What about Ethan? Are you just going to abandon them? Emily's face crumpled. I don't know. I can't just cut Ethan out of my life. He's my son. And what are Sophia and Max? Chopped liver? She started crying again. Of course not. I love all my children. I love you. I don't know how to fix this. I shook my head, feeling exhausted. I don't think you can fix this, Emily. I don't think anyone can. The next morning, I woke up to find Emily gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter. Jake, I've gone to stay with my sister for a few days. I think we both need some space to think. I'll explain to the kids that I have a work emergency. I'm so sorry for everything. I love you. Emily. I crumpled the note in my fist, torn between relief at not having to see her face and anger that she'd run away again. But maybe she was right. Maybe we did need space. I called in sick to work and spent the day in a daze, trying to wrap my head around everything. The kids were at school, and the house felt eerily quiet. I found myself standing in front of the family photos on the wall, staring at Emily's smiling face in each one. Had she been thinking about her other family when these were taken? How many special moments had been tainted by her secret? Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. Emily told me she's staying with her sister. I think we should talk again. There's more you need to know. My stomach churned. What? How could there possibly be more? But I knew I had to hear him out. I texted back agreeing to meet at the same bar that evening. As I waited for the kids to come home from school, I tried to decide what to tell them about their mom's absence. The thought of lying to them made me sick, but I wasn't ready to shatter their world just yet. In the end, I went with Emily's work emergency excuse, hating myself a little for perpetuating the lies. That night, after making sure the kids were settled with a babysitter, I headed out to meet Mark, dreading whatever new revelations awaited me. I got to the bar and found Mark already there, looking like he'd aged 10 years since our last meeting. He had a half-empty beer in front of him and was fidgeting with a napkin. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down. "I know this is all kinds of messed up." "Yeah, no kidding," I replied, ordering a whiskey. "So what's this new bombshell you've got for me?" Mark took a deep breath. "It's about Emily. And, well, it's complicated." I steeled myself. "Just rip off the Band-Aid, man." "All right," he started. "Emily's been talking about coming clean to everyone. Not just you and me, but the kids too. All of them." I felt my jaw clench. "What? Now she suddenly develops a conscience?" Mark shook his head. "It's not that simple. Ethan's been asking questions. Lots of questions. About his mom, about why Emily's only around sometimes. He's a smart kid, Jake. I think he's starting to put the pieces together." I sat back, trying to process this. "So what? She wants to blow up everyone's lives because your kid is curious?" "Our kid," Mark corrected gently, and I felt a surge of anger. "And it's more than that. Emily's. She's talking about trying to merge our families somehow. She says she can't keep living this double life." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, that's rich. She's been doing it for 15 years, but now it's too much." Mark looked uncomfortable. "There's more. She's been talking about leaving me. Says she wants to try and make things right with you, be there full-time for all her kids." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all, and another part wanted to cry. "Jesus," I muttered, downing my whiskey. "It just keeps getting more complicated, doesn't it?" Mark nodded solemnly. "Look, I know I'm probably the last person you want advice from, but I think we need to figure out a way to handle this. For the kids' sake, if nothing else." I stared at him, this man who'd been unknowingly sharing my wife for years. Part of me wanted to tell him to go to hell. But another part knew he had a point. "All right," I said finally, signaling for another drink. "Let's talk." Mark and I spent the next couple of hours hashing things out. It was surreal, sitting there with my wife's lover, trying to figure out how to handle this mess. But as much as I hated to admit it, we were in this together now. "So what do you think?" Mark asked after we'd gone over all the possibilities. "Should we let Emily go through with telling the kids?" I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of the decision. "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to keep Sophia and Max out of this mess. They don't deserve to have their world turned upside down." Mark nodded. "I get that. But Ethan, he's going to find out sooner or later. And the older he gets, the harder it's going to hit him." "Yeah," I sighed. "And what about us? What happens if Emily really does try to leave you for me? No offense, but I'm not sure I even want her back at this point." Mark gave a hollow laugh. "None taken. To be honest, I'm not sure I want to keep her either. This whole situation, it's poison, man. For all of us." We sat in silence for a while, each lost in our own thoughts. Finally, I spoke up. "I think we need to talk to Emily together. All three of us. We need to make a decision about how to move forward, and we need to do it as a united front. For the kids' sake." Mark looked surprised, but then nodded slowly. "You're right. It's time to end all this secrecy and lies. Whatever happens next, it needs to be out in the open." As I left the bar that night, I felt a strange mix of dread and relief. Things were about to change drastically, but at least the truth would finally be out there. I just hoped we could find a way through this mess that wouldn't completely destroy our kids in the process. The next day, I called Emily and told her to come home. Her voice was a mix of hope and fear when I said we needed to talk. I didn't mention Mark. That would be a surprise she'd have to deal with when she got here. While waiting, I paced the living room, rehearsing what I was going to say. The kids were at school, so we had the house to ourselves. Around noon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emily looking like a wreck, dark circles under her eyes, hair a mess. For a split second, I felt the urge to comfort her, but I pushed it down. "Come in," I said flatly. "There's someone else joining us." Emily's confusion turned to shock when she saw Mark sitting on our couch. "What? Jake, what's going on?" "Sit down, Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's time we all talked. No more secrets, no more lies. She sank into an armchair, looking between Mark and me with growing panic. I don't understand. How do you two know each other? Mark spoke up. Jake reached out to me after he found out about us. We've been talking. Emily's face crumpled. Oh God. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Save it, I cut her off. We're not here for apologies. We're here to figure out what happens next. For all of us, including the kids. Emily nodded, wiping away tears. But, you're right. What do you want to do? I took a deep breath, looking at Mark. He gave me a small nod of encouragement. We think it's time to tell the truth, I said. To everyone. Sophia, Max, Ethan. They deserve to know what's been going on. Emily gasped. But it'll destroy them. They're just kids. And whose fault is that? I snapped. You're the one who created this mess, Emily. Now we all have to deal with the fallout. The room fell silent for a moment as Emily absorbed the weight of my words. She looked utterly defeated, her shoulders slumped and her gaze fixed on the floor. You're right, she finally whispered. I did this. But I'll do whatever you both think is best. Mark leaned forward, his voice surprisingly gentle. Emily, we're not trying to punish you. But this can't go on. The kids are getting older, asking questions. Ethan especially. We need to get ahead of this before they start piecing things together on their own. I nodded in agreement. The last thing we want is for them to find out some other way. It needs to come from us. Emily looked up, her eyes darting between Mark and me. How do we even begin to explain this to them? Especially to Sophia and Max? They don't even know Ethan exists. The reality of what we were about to do hit me like a ton of bricks. How do you tell your kids that their entire family life has been built on a lie? We'll need to do it carefully, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Maybe start with individual conversations, then bring everyone together once the initial shock has worn off. Mark nodded. That makes sense. And we should probably have a child psychologist on standby. This isn't going to be easy for any of them. As we continued to hash out the details, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of irony. Here we were, the betrayed husband, the other man, and the cheating wife, working together like some kind of dysfunctional team. There's one more thing we need to discuss, I said, bracing myself for what came next. What happens after we tell the kids? Where do we go from here? Emily looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. I want to try and make things right with you. If you'll have me. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, longing, betrayal, love. But before I could respond, Mark spoke up. Emily, you need to be sure about this. You can't keep bouncing between us. It's not fair to anyone, especially not the kids. I looked at Mark, surprised by his words. He met my gaze with a sad smile. We all deserve a chance at happiness, Jake. Even if it's not the way we originally planned. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Emily's words hung in the air, her plea to make things right. Mark's unexpected support added another layer of complexity to an already impossible situation. Emily, I started, my voice shakier than I'd like, I appreciate that you want to make things right. But I'm not sure if that's even possible anymore. You've lied to me for 15 years. You've had another family. How can I ever trust you again? Emily's face crumpled, but I pressed on. And it's not just about us anymore. We have 3 kids to think about now. 3 kids whose lives are about to be turned upside down because of choices you made. Mark nodded solemnly. He's right, Emily. We can't just think about what we want anymore. We have to do what's best for the children. Emily looked between us, tears streaming down her face. So what do we do? I can't lose my children, any of them. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I think we need to focus on the kids right now. On helping them through this. Our personal feelings, all of this stuff between us adults, it needs to take a back seat. Jake's right, Mark agreed. We need to present a united front for the kids. Show them that even though things are changing, we're all still family in some way. Emily nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. But, so we tell them the truth and then what? How do we even begin to blend these families? I felt a headache coming on. The logistics of this seemed impossible. Holidays, living arrangements, school, everything would have to change. I don't know, I admitted. But I think we need to take it one step at a time. First, we tell the kids. Then, maybe we all go to family counseling. Figure out how to co-parent in this unique situation. As we continued to talk, laying out plans and contingencies, I couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity of it all. My life had become a soap opera, and I was somehow the lead actor, director, and confused audience all at once. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and difficult conversations. We decided to tell the kids individually at first, starting with Ethan since he was already asking questions. Mark and Emily sat him down and explained that Emily was his biological mother. The poor kid was understandably confused and upset, but he seemed relieved to finally have answers. Telling Sophia and Max was harder. We decided to do it together, Emily, Mark, and me. The looks on their faces when we explained the situation will haunt me forever. Sophia, being older, understood more and her anger was palpable. Max just looked lost, asking if this meant he had a new brother. The aftermath was tough. There were tears, shouting matches, and silent treatments. We started family counseling, which helped, but it was clear this would be a long process. Surprisingly, the kids started to bond over their shared anger at us adults. It wasn't ideal, but at least they were connecting. We worked out a complicated custody arrangement. Emily split her time between two households, and we had regular family dinners with all of us. It was awkward as hell at first, but slowly, very slowly, it started to feel less strange. As for Emily and me, we decided to divorce. The trust was too broken to rebuild our marriage. It hurt like hell, but I knew it was the right decision. Mark and Emily's relationship also ended. Too much damage had been done. Strangely enough, Mark and I developed a kind of friendship through all this. We were united in our goal to make this transition as easy as possible for the kids. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but we made it work. It's been a year since everything came out. Our family doesn't look like I thought it would, but we're making it work. The kids are adjusting, though there are still tough days. Emily and I are civil, focused on co-parenting. I've even started dating again, though I'm taking it slow. If there's any advice I can give from this mess, it's this: honesty is crucial in relationships. The truth always comes out eventually, and the longer you wait, the more damage it does. And to anyone dealing with infidelity or family secrets, it's okay to put yourself first sometimes. Your mental health matters too. Life isn't perfect, but it's real now. No more lies, no more secrets. And in the end, that's worth something. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for watching my videos, sharing them, and supporting me along the way. Your views, comments, and likes are the driving force behind my passion to create captivating and unexpected stories. Every tale I share is more than just a plot. It's a journey of emotions, lessons, and reflections that we experience together. Your engagement brings life and soul to this channel. Thank you for sticking with me until the very end of each video, because the finale of every story is where the real impact lies. I promise to continue delivering twists and turns that surprise, inspire, and resonate with your hearts.